Hello, BookTube. Who's up for a nice, enormous mail haul? Something that may go to 40 minutes? Anybody up for that? No? Oh, too bad. so let's just start in. We'll just launch in on these things. First one is completely unknown to me. Yale University Press comes out in a couple of weeks. This is The Woman on the Windowsill, a tale of mystery in several parts by Sylvia Sellers Garcia. The Woman on the Windowsill. On the morning of July 1st, 1800, a surveyor and mapmaker named Cayetano Diaz opened the window of his study in Guatemala City to find a horrific sight, a pair of severed breasts. Offering a meticulous research and evocative account of the quest to find the perpetrator and understand the motives behind such a brutal act, this volume pinpoints the sensational crime as a watershed moment in Guatemalan history that radically changed the nature of justice and established social order. The author reveals how this bizarre and macabre event spurred an increased attention to crime that resulted in more forceful policing and reflected important policy decisions not only in Guatemala but across Latin America. Is this translated? It cannot be. It just cannot be. No, it doesn't look like this is translated. And the author is an associate professor of history at Boston College, so no, this isn't translated. How fascinating. Okay, all right, a small event in Guatemalan history about which I know nothing. What a great way to start. All right, let's move on here. My threat about the length of the video was mostly hollow. I want to try and keep this controlled. Let's see what this next one is. Oh, this is also from Yale. All right, this one is translated from the Hungarian. This is translated from the Hungarian. This is the Margelos World of Letters, I think, from Yale. This is by Laszlo Fodenyi, translated from the Hungarian by Ottilie Molzet, and it's called Dostoevsky Reads Hegel in Siberia and Bursts into Tears. This might be the title of the year. And it has blurbs from Kirkus Review and Alberto Manguel. The author is a writer who is learned in reference, taste, and judgment, and entertaining in style. Taking place in a long tradition of public and intellectual cultural criticism, his work resonates with that of Montaigne, Rilke, and Mann in its deep insight into aspects of culture that have been suppressed yet remain in the depths of our consciousness. In this new collection of essays, this is a collection of essays, all right, the author considers the fallout from the end of religion and how the traditions of the Enlightenment have replaced neither the metaphysical completeness nor the comforting purpose of the previously held mythologies. Okay, yes. All right, fine. The traditions of the Enlightenment also haven't replaced the knee-jerk bigotry and the burning of people alive and the mental terrorism that's conducted on children from as soon as they are old enough to know the language. The Enlightenment traditions didn't replace any of those things either. Okay. Also, the complete obdurate, bullheaded, head down, to the death resistance to any kind of scientific advance, that also was not perpetuated by the Enlightenment. So you're right. Yeah, that dirty Enlightenment. It took away a lot of things and left us with so little. The author covers a wide range of topics that include a meditation on the metaphysical unity of the sculpture group and an analysis of fear as a window into our relationship with time. Okay, sounding more and more Manguel-esque as we go. But this comes out in late February, so it's right on my docket. It's a finished copy right on my radar. We will see. I don't know this author, so it'll be an introduction. Let's see what's next here. Another finished copy. Oh, another one from Yale. Somebody at Yale cleaned off their desk. All right, well, that's fine by me. I am a big fan of university presses and perhaps the world's biggest fan of Yale University Press. So this is going to be the same date in February. Yes, it is. This is the same date in February. This is John Haynes, and it is Nature Underfoot, living with beetles, crabgrass, fruit flies, and other tiny life around us. Fruit flies, silverfish, dandelions, and crabgrass, reviled by many humans, are the target of numerous chemical and physical eradication efforts. People try to get rid of these things. In this book, to be published in third week in February, the author, an entomologist and former pesticide developer, considers how these unwanted pests and weeds have co-evolved with humanity. In a compelling reassessment of the relationship between humans and the natural world, he calls for a greater respect and moral consideration towards these organisms. You want to have moral consideration towards silverfish. Kind of in love. Inspired by insights from religion, ethics, and philosophy, the author celebrates the beauty, ingenuity, resilience, and magical qualities of the smallest and most mundane flora and fauna. Okay. All right, fine. And there's some did you know bullet points here. Did you know that 9 billion pounds of pesticide were applied around the world in 2016? 9 billion pounds. Did you know that more than 70% of U.S. households use chemical pesticides? Did you know that insects are in spectacular decline? Germany has lost 75% of its mass of flying insects in the last 20 years alone. And did you know that more than 40% of insect species are threatened with extinction? Okay, well, I didn't know the numbers were that bad. So this is the same date in February. All three of these books come out on the same day. Let's see if we can just keep going. Maybe this will all be Yale. Wouldn't that be something? I don't know if that's ever happened. I've had one publisher mail haul. Let's see. Oh, the next one is Yale. The next one is Yale. Oh my God. And it's the same date. Somebody cleared off their desk. This is the same date. This is a paperback. Is this going to be a paperback? Well, the price on it's going to be $37, so I find that hard to believe. But it looks like this is a finished copy. So this may be a $37 paperback. That would be unbelievable. This is Artful History, a practical anthology. Edited by Aaron Sachs and John Demos. Is there any reason that serious historical scholarship cannot receive literary expression? Well, there's one reason. If a 200-page paperback is $37, that's one reason I can think of. Isn't it possible that the most committed empiricists and postmodernists might both achieve better results by thinking and writing as a craft, rather than just a means of packaging research? This book compiles some of the most compelling efforts to make history writing eloquent, stirring, and memorable in the realms of both practice and theory. The authors include here prove great potential of approaching writing of history as a literary art, even as they retain commitment to rigorous scholarship. Slight whiff of a straw man there, just slight. They don't embrace it. They come close as they can, and then they don't embrace it. I'm sure I don't need to tell these editors that historians have been writing beautiful prose for a long time. It's just bad historians that don't do that. That's all. And if universities hadn't turned into degree mills, we wouldn't have quite so many bad historians. They would be judged on all across the whole spectrum. Some of the history books that I look at today could only have been put forward to get a candidate degree, and not because the writing is impenetrably bad. So I don't think those were ever in contrast, as the pub sheet almost wants to say. But anyway, let's move on here to the next. What I'm assuming is the next Yale book. I'm sure this will be another Yale book. It is. It's another Yale book. This is 6 in a row. All right, fine. I'm a big fan. Oh, man, what a cover. Good Lord. Okay, this is by George Schaller, and it's called Into Wild Mongolia. Look at that. Is that an anesthetized snow leopard that they're holding? I hope it's anesthetized. This is the same date in February, third week in February. After it became a satellite of the Soviet Union in the 1920s, Mongolia's doors were closed to the outside world for decades. Not everyone in the outside world. Some bits and pieces of the outside world got in just fine, even with a crowd of eagles. Field biologist George Schaller, winner of the National Book Award for the Serengeti lion, was one of the first Western scientists allowed to enter the country to study Mongolia's unique native wildlife species, one of which is the snow leopard. Between 1989 and 2018, the author made trips in collaboration with Mongolian and American scientists assessing the conservation status of snow leopards, wild Bactrian camels. The Bactrian camel has 2 humps instead of 1. Your humble host, I maintain, is the only booktuber who has ever written both kinds of camels. Or even maybe one kind of camel. How many of you have written a camel of any kind? The one humps, the dromedaries, are very common throughout large parts of the world. They're almost unbelievable in terms of their endurance. They're very, very mean and dumb animals, but they do not need a great deal of care. Bactrian camels are far less hardy, despite the fact that they're heavier built and they have shaggy fur. They aren't the workhorses that single hump dromedaries are. But How many of you have written even one humped camel, much less two? At least with Bactrian camels, you don't have to worry about all the nasty stuff that dromedaries, that single hump camels do. Single hump camels will bite if they can. If they sense that you're not paying attention, they will bite. And believe you me, the bite is bad, very bad. And they'll also spit. Even when they can't bite, they'll spit, and that also is really bad. And they like to stomp. And some of them, the smarter ones of them, even fling. They won't just defecate in place. They'll aim it. It's not a pretty thing at all. But who else? What else do they study? Bactrian camels, red deer, Gobi bears, antelopes, Mongolian gazelles, and more. This book provides a first-hand account of the author's journeys within this remote country, where he helped develop conservation initiatives for some of Mongolia's most amazing species. Okay, well, so this is natural history right there, right there firsthand. And it's full of black and white and color photos. Fantastic. Okay. All right, we are just going to keep going. I'm assuming now that this is just going to be all Yale books. I'm assuming that somebody, before they left the office on Friday, just decided to put a bunch of books in the mail that they got. Oh, no, all right, so no sooner said than contradicted. This is from Bloomsbury. This is due in early March. This is the finished copy of Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, which is considerably thinner than the advanced copy was. The subtitle is House of Earth and Blood. And of course you will know this author already from her million copy selling YA novels. And this has been called the debut of her adult series. But there's a YA figure on the cover, and also there's an absolute staple on the cover. The book has a title, but somewhere lost in the mash of the title and the subtitle is an ironclad YA fantasy cliche, which is the something of something and something. These things never have a title that isn't that. The something of something and something. And this is the House of Earth and Blood. This is the author of The Court of Thorns and Roses. That is inescapable in YA. And those two things, if the third inescapable cliche does this book's major events, kingdoms, worlds fighting each other, do those events end up turning on which boy the female protagonist wants to go steady with? The handsome, normal, acceptable one that she can take home to her parents, or the brooding bad boy who will thrill her in ways that she's never known before? Which of those boys will she date? If the whole of the plot, the kingdom of Eritrea or whatever, and all of its nobles, and all of its army, and all of its magical creatures, and all of its age-old rituals is all dependent on which boy the girl wants to date, then it's a YA novel. So I don't know. Let's see here. Bryce Quinlan had the perfect life, working hard all day and partying all night, until a demon murdered her closest friends, leaving her bereft, wounded, and alone. When the accused is behind bars, but the crimes start up again, Bryce finds herself at the heart of the investigation. She'll do whatever it takes to avenge their deaths. Hunt Alathar is a notorious fallen angel, now enslaved to the archangels he once attempted to overthrow. His brutal skills and incredible strength have been set to one purpose: to assassinate his boss's enemies, no questions asked. But with a demon wreaking havoc in the city, he's offered an irresistible deal. Help Bryce find the murderer, and his freedom will be within reach. As Bryce and Hunt dig deep into Crescent City's underbelly, they discover a dark power that threatens everything, everyone they hold dear, and they find in each other a blazing passion, one that could set them both free if only they'd let it. Certainly sounds to me like the plot that has rapidly gone from avenging the murders of her friends to saving the whole city, everything they hold dear, is going to depend a lot on her romantic fortunes with this one gorgeous boy, who's an angel. So we shall see. We shall see. So this comes out in early March. I have already read a chunk of the advanced copy, but I really need to bear down on the book and pay it the attention it deserves. It's being billed anyway as a slight genre crossover, so it deserves some attention. All right, so that wasn't a Yale copy. That wasn't a Yale book at all. So let's see what this next one is. This is one of these adhesive envelopes that you have to just, this is all sticky. So you have to tear it apart and place all the pieces facing each other so that it's not sticking to everything in the world as you try to dispose of it. You have to make a sandwich of the adhesive. So what is it that was doing? Oh, okay, we've seen this already. This is the finished copy for $15. It's a $15 paperback. Probably a February release. Yes, February release. This is Machiavelli. The Art of Teaching People What to Fear by Patrick Boucheron, translated from the French, I believe, by Willard Wood. It's going to be an original trade paperback, and that's what it's going to look like. No falderall on the cover, just demonic scratching covering Machiavelli's face. Machiavellian, the word is as well-known shorthand for political amorality, the cunning of the power-hungry, the doctrine of the ends justifying any violence of means. But did Niccolo Machiavelli, Florentine envoy in exile, shrewd observer of the political tumult of Renaissance Italy, really set out to produce a handbook for tyrants in his most famous and maligned work, The Prince? The answer is no, he did not. Or was he rather, as Rousseau believed, instructing the people on what they have to fear? In this book, a preeminent historian explores the easy characters of Machiavellian thought, offering a prismatic and provocative take on the unjustly maligned figure with valuable political insights that resonate as strongly today as they did in his own time. Okay, great. And the author is a French historian who's previously taught medieval history at the University of Paris, and is currently a professor of history at the College of France. He's the author of 12 books and the editor of 5, including France in the World, which became a bestseller in France, and which I think was translated. I think I've read France in the World. All right, great. I love paperback originals. That's fantastic. So, a new consideration of Machiavelli in a trade paperback. Let's see, how are we doing for time? We're not doing bad, considering how many books this is. We're not doing bad at all. We have a few more to go, and we end with a box. Okay. All right, this is a finished copy of another thing, debut, I think. Yes, a debut. This comes out in early February, right, Tuesday. This comes out on Tuesday. This is Sean Prescott's novel, The Town, in its finished copy. And the author is Australian. This is Australia, an unnamed dead-end town in the heart of the outback, a desolate place of gas stations, fast food franchises, and labyrinthine streets, flat and nearly abandoned. When a young writer arrives to research just such depressing middle-of-nowheres as they are choked into oblivion, he finds something more sinister than economic depression. The ghost towns of Australia appear to be literally disappearing. An epidemic of mysterious holes is threatening his new home's very existence, and this discovery plunges the researcher into an abyss of weirdness from which he may never escape. So this is Sean Prescott's debut. He didn't bother to smile, even though he has a book contract, but maybe he had other things on his mind. Maybe his cat is sick. So this comes out in early February, right around the corner. And I haven't read the advance copy, even though we saw the advance copy on this channel, and it did intrigue me. As usual, February was largely suffering by it because of January. Because January, I was playing infinite catch-up on January. So let's see. All right, this next one is also a finished copy. This is also February, I bet. Let's see. No, March. This is early March. And this is Elise Colette Goldbach's book, Rust, a memoir of steel and grit. Let's see here. This is a powerful, compassionate, and fully realized debut. Oh, this is the first work of history, which welds together her personal journey, one that includes suffering a sexual assault, battling mental illness, reckoning with a deeply rooted faith, and working at the mill, with an intimate portrait of people in the Rust Belt, especially the blue-collar backbone of our nation. Written with prose as gritty as the mill itself and told with a perfect mixture of live experience and learned perspective, Rust does for steel workers what Sarah Smarsh's Heartland did for farmers in flyover country, and what J.D. Vance's Hillbilly Elegy did for the poor white working class of Appalachia. Okay, all right. So those two things, the publicist would hope that it does for steelworking what those two books did for their subjects, because they did well. Those books did well. So we will see if this does the same thing. It's certainly perfectly timed, as caucuses and primaries for 2020 voting begin in certain parts of America, and as attention intensifies all over the country on what places like the Rust Belt and the Bible Belt and the flyover country will do in the voting boxes. So it's a perfectly well timed. And then we have the box, and then we'll be done. Let's see. I've got a pile of stuff here to clean up. This will be a finished copy, I'm sure. Yes. What have we got here? What have we got here? Oh no. Oh my. These books are becoming cotton candy for me. This is David Hand. This is Dark Data. Why What You Don't Know Matters. It has a die-cut cover there, so you got a hole in the cover. Why What You Don't Know Matters. Let's see here. Of course, one of the annoying parts of these. It's a design that has been. One of the annoying things about these things is that they rip. These books get piled. In the era of big data, it is easy to imagine that we have all the information we need to make good decisions. But in fact, the data we have are never complete and may only be the tip of the iceberg. In this book, the author, who's a data expert and author of the improbability principle, explores the many ways in which we can be blind to missing data and how that can lead us to conclusions and actions that are mistaken, dangerous, or even disastrous. Examining a wealth of real-life examples from the Challenger shuttle explosion to complex financial frauds, the author offers a practical taxonomy of the types of dark data that exist and the situations in which they can arise, so that we can learn to recognize and control for them. In doing so, he teaches us not only to be alert to the programs presented by the things we don't know, but also shows how dark data can be used to our advantage, leading to greater understanding and better decisions. That's a tough sell. Okay, well, this comes out. This is Princeton University Press, but we are right back to the exact same date as most of the books in this. Most of the books in this little haul were all on the same day, February the 18th, third Tuesday of the month. So it's going to be a busy day. So there you go. That was a mail haul, and not a very long one, considering how many books. So we have Dark Data, all the stuff you don't know, and how it can hurt you. Then Rust, a memoir of steel and grit, about not only the author's personal life, but also the Rust Belt. The Town by Sean Prescott, a debut novel about outback towns in Australia disappearing, written obviously went to press before the devastating fires in Australia that had a science fiction element of their own. Then Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. Into Wild Mongolia by George Schaller, about going into Mongolia and analyzing its wildlife. Artful History, an anthology of historians who write well, go figure. Nature Underfoot, about despised and rejected animals, bugs, beetles, and fungi of all kinds, and how they're good, how they have a kind of beauty to them. Dostoevsky reads Hegel in Siberia and bursts into tears, a collection of essays translated from the Hungarian. The Woman on the Windowsill, an analysis of apparently a watershed criminal justice event in Guatemala. And finally, Machiavelli, very simply titled Machiavelli, a trade paperback original release of a reconsideration of Machiavelli and how he may be misunderstood by a lot of the people who quote him endlessly. I can tell you for sure that he is, so that's welcome to see. And there you go. That's a huge mail haul. Lots and lots of finished copies that I'm going to need to reorganize the entire February shelf now. But I knew it was coming, so I'm going to wrap this up before it goes any longer, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.